The DA criticizes government's so-called emergency plan to pump partially treated acid mine water into the Vaal River. And City of Cape Town authorities send their condolences to the family of the man who died during yesterday's boat accident in Hout Bay. I'm Richard Brooks. The DA has criticized government's so-called emergency plan to pump partially treated acid mine water into the Vaal River. The Department of Water Affairs is reportedly set to pump the water without a scientific analysis on the impact on the river and the environment around it. The acid mine water is expected to reach Goldreef City's underground mine museum south of Johannesburg by the middle of next year. The DA's Jack Bloom.
I think that Gauteng Premier Nomvula Mokonyane must stop taking a back seat. She must intervene urgently, make sure that particularly this project to pump acid mine water into the Vaal River is properly overseen, because else we'll get a polluted river and we're still not addressing the underlying cause of this acid mine drainage and trying to get a long-term solution. I think the problem is we're using emergency short-term solutions when we should be looking at a long-term solution to purify the water as a whole and address the underlying problem.
Labour economist at AdCorp, Lone Sharp, says the country needs to look at labour laws and regulations and see how they can promote peace in the labour sector. Sharp says there's a need to go back to all institutions that can drive labour peace in order to avoid more labour unrests. He says factors driving unrest are protests, strikes in the mining sector, wage settlements that are above inflation, and falling productivity. He says the mining sector is expected to shed 200,000 jobs over the next 10 years.
Production won't be adversely affected in the long run, but unfortunately employment will be affected. So we're expecting the mining sector to lose 200,000 jobs over the next decade. I think we need to revisit our labour relations framework, which gives rise to these periodic crises. And maybe Marikana was just the impetus for us to look at our labour laws and regulations and see how they are supposed to promote labour peace, but in fact all we get is labour unrest. So I think we've got to go back to all the institutions that are supposed to drive labour peace.
City of Cape Town authorities have sent their condolences to the family of the man who died during yesterday's boat accident in Hout Bay near Cape Town. 38 people, including international tourists, were on board the boat when it capsized. The search is underway for a man who is still missing. Berenice Moss has more.
The NSRI says the salvage vessel Smit Amandla is on scene to conduct a forensic salvage operation. Divers from the SA Navy, Police and the NSRI are taking part in the search. The South African Maritime Safety Authority says the boat had a valid legal safety certificate and was certified to carry 42 passengers and 3 crew. Meanwhile, in a statement, City of Cape Town Mayor Patricia de Lille says she's grateful to the response teams and others for helping to pull passengers to safety. She says the incident could have been far more tragic had there not been a quick response.
World finance leaders have endorsed a checklist of policy reforms aimed at defusing debt troubles in Europe and the US and promised to review progress in 6 months' time. The checklist and the 6-month checkup are designed to hold countries accountable for following through on their commitments. Economists say this is an acknowledgement of frustration within the International Monetary Fund, as well as emerging market economies over piecemeal policy responses. The IMF's Managing Director, Christine Lagarde, says members have narrowed their differences over how to implement policy.